Hello, welcome to Uppards workshop. I'm Lawrence, and as always you're welcome in the workshop. So, where have I been and what have I been up to? Well, not a lot until the past week, more or less in hibernation with the cold and wet Pennine weather. Being locked in has been a bit of a bind, it's been a bit low, and then January, February, March I picked up vertigo, something to do with the crystals in the liquid that sorts out your balance in the inner ear. So I've been doing some exercises, I can't remember the name. You sit on the bed, look up and flop down one way, look up and flop down the other, and that makes you even more dizzy, but hopefully the rocking breaks the crystals up. So I'm feeling a bit better after that. So I thought after 2 months lull I might as well give you an update on what I'm doing in the garage and the garden, and a collection here of hand tools that I've been building up over the past 2 years. So what I've done over the past week or so is, and I'll show it here, I ordered a skip and I've stripped out the 6 of my 6 foot by 4 foot stepped raised beds that was in the bottom right hand corner of the garden. I've had it for about 15 years. Next door's tree roots have more or less ruined any chance of growing anything in there. And this year, the garden was full of mare's tail and nettles. So going forward, I'm going to have a minimalist back garden with a minimum of maintenance. So I'm not going to be trying to grow stuff. So I stripped those out. The timber was rotten anyway. It's been in about 15 years. As you can see, I've filled a midi skip just with the timber and a bit of the foundation stone for my beds at the side. So the bottom half of the garden, and I'll show you a picture, I'm putting 4x4 fence posts in like sleepers. It's cheaper than buying sleepers. 8 foot 4x4 fence posts. I'm going to treat them with the dark oak stain, as you can see on one set. Lap jointing them and bolting them and having them as an edging, and all that bottom corner, which I'll show there, I dug it out and I spread the soil out, and I think what I'm going to have to do is rip everything up, fill another skip and get some turf in, and that way it just needs mowing once in a while. The bottom left hand side of the garden has one 12 foot raised bed that has all my ballerina fruit trees in, apples, pears, plums, is that it? Apples, pears, plums, yeah. And at the bottom it's got a woodland layer of wild ramsons, wild garlic for the salads, and English bluebells, not the imported ones. That I was thinking of tearing out because the trees are just getting unmanageable, but the family doesn't want me to do that, so they're staying another year. The bottom corner I might put decking down. So that's in the garden. So in the workshop, the Record Power Sabre 350 bandsaw is still there. It's been my most used big power tool so far, not too bad. I think I'm going to go on a bandsaw box making workshop. I found one nearby because, as you know, I've no skills. Next to that, there's the Trend router table with a Trend T11. The T7's back here. The T11's permanently in with the adjusted knob at the top, and I've attached the aftermarket dust extraction from the top and bottom. So that pipe you can see is going into the Sharpening eventually. So that'll keep the dust down. The bottom multi-purpose trolley with the grinding wheels, I forgot what's on the end. Oh, it's got the little 4-inch jointer that chewed the ends of my fingers off. The guard on that to give you a right angle for jointing is too light and flimsy, and I did buy an aluminium fence to replace it, but I've not got that on. Underneath is the big fret saw and my proper jointer. So the proper jointer and the fret saw and one or two of the grinding wheels are going to stay. Whether they're staying on a bench, I'm not too sure. The Parkside ones are a little underpowered, as I found out while I've been grinding down the aluminium strips that I had to fit on as an aftermarket add-on to the table saw, which you can see in the bottom corner. It's still in pieces. I've still got to get the Incra table saw fence system sorted out, but I'm getting closer on that. So that's that. Very happy with the Festool vac and the bobbin sander, so they're all right. Because it's still damp in the garage, I'm having to use the dehumidifier. So all my cheap and cheerful hand tools, I've slowly been buying decent quality replacements for them. I know I've got some fantastic big power tools in the workshop for basically a single car garage. I reckon I've put about as much in as it's going to manage. If I put a router tabletop on the end of the table saw, I might do away with the trend router table, so that'll be a 2-in-1, going back to when I had the lumberjack saw and router table on a trolley together, so I might have a 2-in-1 there to save some space. But the past 2 years I'm getting on to the hand tools. I'm not buying any more cheap and cheerful tools from Parkside. The idea was I had a long-term goal, and you saw me little wooden Kessner style drawer toolbox, which you can see. That's kept upstairs. My hand tools, I've bought, I think, more or less all the hand tools that I'm going to need, and eventually I know I've got them all in these little beach trays because I've been keeping them indoors. These are my indoor tools, like indoor cats, so they don't get musty in here during the bad winter. That's been great. I've got 2 big ones and 6 small shallow trays, and I'll run through them and show you the tool haul. Bearing in mind, these are not all recent purchases. It's about 3 years of buying, steadily working my way through, upgrading what I've got. For instance, got a little coping saw. Ooh! Somebody really ought to block me on Workshop Heaven. I've got a copy of the Canoe Concepts. Is it New or Canoe Concepts patent pending fret saw with the rust brace on it? So that's one of my purchases. And as I say, thanks to, who was it? Octavian Dan. Look up Octavian Dan. He's still posting the occasional project. He works in an apartment and he's got a little modern version of a Roman workbench that you sit on, and he keeps all his fancy tools in these stacked so he can do small projects using hand tools. So I took a leaf out of his book and bought these. You can get them on Amazon Beach stacking boxes, and I'll work the way through. So, bit of a tool haul. What you have seen before, and to be honest, I've overbought. These were my first purchases, the little Veritas hand saws. I still love these to bits. I've got they come in 2 depths basically, shallow depths and deeper depth. The shallow depth I've got in 20 teeth per inch rip and 16 teeth per inch cross cut. 14 teeth per inch crosscut and 12 teeth per inch rip. I've not had a lot of use because I've not started doing a lot of small box making projects, but that's the idea, is that I build up this heritage tool collection. They may eventually, one of my projects later this year or early next year might be a David Barron or Mike Pekovich style hand tool toolbox to take them. Although I am tempted, depending on the floor space, getting the traditional carpenter's toolbox, like, is it Schwartz? Anyway, I'll post one. There's a new guy I'll give you a link to that's doing a modern version of that big tool chest with sliding tills. So that's the traditional saws, which I love to bits. Can't recommend them widely enough. But in terms of practicing for dovetailing, I found out that the little dovetail saws don't work well with the dovetail guides because you need the extra side. I've got a selection of dovetail guides in there, so I'll show you why. So just after Christmas this year, I went on Workshop Heaven, and these are, I can't remember the name of them, but they are the mini-sized Japanese saws. They have a really nice soft nylon plastic handle and a really nice Japanese hardened, really fine saw blades. So you can get them in a set for about 60 quid, I think. I've got the Ryoba, that's the double-edged one, a bit like a small version of that one that I've been using in the garden. So basically I've got all contingencies. I've got the Ryoba double edge. That gives, that's a 1/2 inch blade, sorry, a 0.5mm blade. This is the Kataba. I'll take one out. In actual fact, when it comes to having them in the... So that's the Ryoba, and you unscrew them. So you can buy replacement blades, although the nice people at Workshop Heaven do say that with reasonable hobby use, these things will last years because of the quality of the steel. So that's nice. Just put that away. If you like, I'm 13 minutes in, so if you want to pause it now and get yourself a cup of coffee or tea, or maybe some time. So that's the Kataba. Which is, again, nice and flexible. You remember the traditional European saws are push to cut. These are pull to cut, which means that you can have a much thinner blade without a reinforced back on, because basically you're putting the blade in tension as you pull, so you can have a much thinner curve. And the Dozuki. So that does have a back, and I've actually used that in anger. That was very nice. So that's those. Come on, run the other way. So I'm thinking I could probably put 2 handles in storage and have the 3 blades and 1 handle in a toolbox. What do you think? That's an idea. 8-inch wood screw clamp. That's for holding workpieces on my against my cross-cut sled on the table saw when that gets working. Now, I'll just pull in closer for this. Tool sharpening. I'm an absolute cack-handed idiot when it comes to tool sharpening. I've tried everything, and I'll show you some of the things I've got in here from past. I did have the I've tried it every which ways. I've gone back to my old dad's carborundum stone. I think that's a 300 and a 600 oil stone. I've played around with water stones. To add on to the Axminster Rider that gives you, which is a handy, I can't recommend this enough. It comes away with a 400 grit and a 1000 grit. All on a board and a leather strop, and you've got the guides for the bevels that you use with the universal blade guide. That was good. I've played with that, and I've played with, in between the 1000, I've got a 3000 and an 8000 water stone. That's for everyday use in the workshop. But for my heritage hand tool set, I've got a rather snazzy case here. Did I tell you this is 2 years worth of bending the credit card and not just a couple of weeks? I have from Niwa. It's a guy who imports Japanese gardening and hand tools, and this is a water bath. So you've got a rubber strip here with end caps to stop your pads. What's the word? Oh, on the trend. A rubber to rub the grit off the pad. So to go with this water bath, and it gave me a heart attack. Ooh! Sharpening. So, the idea of this is to follow the Rob Cosman method. Rob Cosman is a very well-known Canadian, I think. He's either Canadian or American YouTube denizen, and he's been training for 20 odd years, and he's pushed the boundaries of sharpening chisels and hand plane blades to a fine art. He recommends, which is what I'm going to be doing going forward, to use the trend diamond plate. Don't really need the 300, but you use the trend diamond plate at 100 grit, and then when you're first breaking in your plane blades, you use an intermediate blade. That's at 6000, and he goes up, I know, 16,000. So I'm going to be trying all of them and I'll be showing you my success or my failures. But this is the heritage set, as I say. Niwaki, and I like that water tray because I was using a baking dish before and it was a bit iffy. So that's it. The last sharpening plates I will ever buy. Men in black, men in sheds. The last sharpening kit I'll buy. Come on, that's it. It goes on. Very well. Now, what have I got? I'll have to run through these very quickly. There we go. So, a tray for my dovetailing. Pair of calipers for marking out, a Cat's Moses dovetail jig, and I've got he does a wooden guide, and of course I can't find it. But anyway, Cat's Moses. Dewey dovetail saw guide magnetic. You saw that on and followed the guideline. That's why I say a saw with a back, it's difficult sometimes to get to the full depth. So I'll be playing with them. That's in 90 degree and that's a 1 in 7. I've got a little engineer square. That's a multi guide. They all come in all sizes. Importantly, and I'll be showing you this as I practice with my dovetailing, a Sean shim that comes with step guides of 23, 24 and 23, 24, 25 and 26 thou steps. That is to help you cut your lines for your dovetail, and a Rob Cosman marking knife. It comes with a standard marking knife, but it also comes with a knife with a dovetail saw blade, so that when you're actually marking against your guide, you're not marking a thin pencil line that you have to either cut one side or the other. That gives you the start of the curve, in theory. So that's that. For sharpening plain blades, I've been playing around with the trend roller guide, and that's the stepped guide for extending your blade out for 25, 30, 35 and 40 degree sharpening. That's been overtaken. Put those there. Veritas, I thought I'd get the Veritas guide, all singing or dancing. It's got the flat roller. You can get a base with a curved roller to put a curved edge on the blade, and that's a depth guide. I thought that was it. Then I realised, looking through the small print, that is, whereas something like, where is it? That grips the edge of your blades, whether it's a plain blade or a chisel, however thin. This is why it pays to read the small print. That'll only do down to about 3/4 of an inch wide. So if you have any chisels less than 3/4 of an inch wide, that guide, which clamps top and bottom rather than side to side, so it doesn't really work for narrow blades. So you have to buy the other gizmo that does narrow blades. So there you go. Now, as you'll see later, I went overboard with the chisels. So skew chisels, and I'll show you that later. You have to buy a special guide so you can sharpen skew chisels. I don't know why you just don't open a vein and invite workshop heaven in. Now, next one. You know, when you're taking the chip breaker off a plain blade, you need a screwdriver, and you're always skewing it up and messing that screw head. This is a special one just for that. If I remember, I'll show it in action when I get the hand plane out. Blast from the past. My dad, bless his cotton socks, was an engineer all his life, but he originally trained as a carpenter, so he had a very small range of tools. He had the old egg beater drill, so I wanted to go trying unplugged in the workshop at some times, so I got this. It's brand new, it's nice and pretty. I could have got a vintage one, but they're all banged up and messed up, and you have to do a restoration. So pretty boxes, pretty tools. Next job. Planes. I'm keeping the planes, hand planes, to a minimum. I don't, because I've got the workshop tools, I don't need a 4-plane, a tri-plane, or a jointing plane, the 6, 7 and 8. I have a 4, a cheap one, so that's the number 4. And I thought, what's the minimum I can get away with? So, locking up my minimalist hand tool woodworking kit, probably a 5. Now, we can get into the argument of Paul Sellers, who recommends the 4, which is strictly, the 4 and 3 are strictly speaking smoothing planes, and he can make that sing and dance because he's had 50, 60 years in woodworking. Bob Cosman recommends for anything under than ladies or youths, start with a 5. So I bought myself a 5, and I'll show you that shortly from Planshang. So I'm going to manage with a 5, a 4, a block plane and a shoulder plane. Now, in order to maximise the use of this, I've got the Axminster 3-in-1. You won't be able to see it, but that end comes off, it screws off. So I can have either a standard shoulder plane, a bull nose, or no nose at all. So that's a 3-in-1. And again, when I start doing bit bigger rabbits, I'm just going to be playing around with that. So that's that. And I've shown you those and shown you those. Let's swap these out. Oh yeah. We'll run through these very quickly. I've built up my marking gauges. I have a wooden marking gauge. These are all wheel gauges. I've got the standard wheel gauge with the micrometer adjustment at the back. I've got the one that can also be used to mark out on curves. And then the motor's engaged with the two blades. Little combination square. That's my original plain blade guide. That was a Draper. 32 minutes. I think I'll do this one and call this part 1. Otherwise you're going to get bored. I thought, in line with the Japanese saws, I'd complete my gentleman's heritage tool collection with a little footprint gent saw, again for dovetailing. I had one of these in my teens. I had a fret saw and one of these, and I borrowed my dad's little egg beater drill. That was my tool set, and a copy, and I used to 1/2 inches number 4 plane as well. That's no, just because they're pretty. A brace of spoke shades for how pretty they're going to look in a toolbox. Again, Quansheng, bronze body. One has a flat sole and one has a curved sole. They're not expensive. They are out of stock a lot, so let's have a look. So that's that. I think I'll call it a day, and part 2 will be here shortly. Till then, stay safe in the workshop, have fun, and I'll see you soon.